A 21st century paper lantern was a leftover from a Chinese festival. And we want to take this, we want to modify it, we want to rebuild it, make it look like it's 100 years old. Today on Historical Recreations. In any situation, it's figuring out how to... Oh, it is coming out. Unassembling something. This is... Oh, there it is. Very, very simple. Okay. So our top piece with all of the tassels are... This is the part that really needs to be repaired. So I'm going to very, very carefully take the tassels off and then try to fix all of the paper. Now, since we're working with paper, there's several different techniques you can use. You could use a starch and try to put that back in place, iron that back into where it should be. If the paper is too weak, we may need to get a piece of aluminum wire and reconstruct a frame to hold that back out. I also have a clip here. Okay, so the assessment is done. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take the tassels off and then work with the top piece. Okay, we have come to a new problem, is getting the tassels off completely. I'm using the pick to go in there to open that up to try to get... Oh my goodness, this is more complicated than I thought it was going to be. Well, we're going to have to work around that. It looks like due to the fact that the tassels were just, how do you say, looped over and pushed through, it's going to it'll take me a while to get all of that off there. I may need to put these tassels in paper tubes or fold them up some way to protect them from the work that we're doing. Putting each and every tassel in its own little container here. So I'm just taking a piece of paper, folding it in half, making an envelope, putting the tassel inside of the envelope, and then just stapling it in there. Now that gives us a tassel-free area to work with all the strings getting tangled up around the decorative. Removing tape from objects. If you have tape, we're just lucky, this is just masking tape and it is crispy from, I guess, sitting and aging. We got some stickiness left over like this. However, if you want to take masking tape off of something, you can use rubbing alcohol. That will pop it off. You have to soak. Okay, we have to do this side now. You have to soak the tape. I'm going to be very, very careful not to rip the paper. I'm surprised that was still, it actually still has stickiness on that. That's age. As it ages, it does that. So there, we are now moving into the right stage. Now we have a big problem because we have collapse going on, so we need to repair the decorative parts. And I noticed that this is also in pieces and I could take it apart. However, the one thing that's kind of got me is that there's tape. Whoever owned this prior taped up each piece so that it's fused together. So we need to figure out a way not to cut that tape off and leave it on. So we're going to have to... I'm thinking about using a hairdryer. And the first thing, I'm going to take a hairdryer and see if I can with hot air pull some of these back into place. So let's see what that looks like after I use the hot hairdryer on it. Okay, I've got my hairdryer out and it kind of is the same color as the project we're working on. So let's put this on heat, low. shop making, you always have to come up with something creative and creative solutions. I am making a spiral to put around the top part of our lantern because I want something that's going to blend in. I don't want just a wire there. So I'm using this soft aluminum wire. You can get this at any hardware store or even a store that sells art supplies. And I'm going to set these guys up and see if we can hot glue them in place on our lantern. This is going to be tricky. I'm going to be using a hot glue gun, and I'm going to apply a bit of the hot glue to the side, and we're going to see if we can create a brace to get the rip parts back to where it's working out very well. I'm just applying a very minute amount of hot glue from the hot glue gun to create a structural support. You know, because what you're doing is you're adding plastic. You know, you're adding plastic. This is working out much better than I thought it was going to work out. I was going to do all kinds of crazy stuff. What we'll do is we'll mask this up so you cannot see the hot glue. A lot of work that had been done. We've got our structural wires that are holding up the paper now. I've got one on this side, one on this side. One on this side over here, braces. All of the folded paper was hot glued back into place, and now we have our hexagon looking like it's new again. So what we need to do, now for this, you're probably saying, well, that's going to show up. Well, we got to mix up the exact same color as this and paint over it. Let's do that. I had pulled out 3 colors today in acrylic, a 614 Vermillion, a 33 Coral Red, and also a Vermillion 7. We're going to do a test to see which one of these colors match. I can see this has been solidified. I think we may have it right there. Okay, using our Vermillion 614, we are going to very carefully paint over anything that is hot glue or what comes the more interesting part of our tutorial. We're going to start to age this paper. You got to remember that though there is a coating on the paper, I need to also be careful because you don't want to have warping, and it's very important that you're going to do the inside also. Don't leave it the modern white color. So we are looking at this. I have a small bowl of water over here, and today's magic color we're going to be using a burnt umber. In most of my tutorial videos you discover that I'm going to always use the burnt umber because it is the color that just ages everything. I'm going in with a wet brush. I've also got some soft tissue here just in case I need to blot out anything, and we're going to see what this begins to do. Yep, there's the aging already. You can already see discoloration starting. Now we want to be a little bit on the dry side because I'm working that right into the fiber of the. You can see how this aged quite well. So I'm going to finish all the pieces and let them dry. And once you get your whole entire part stained, it should start to look like this. And I ran it under a hot hair dryer to make sure that it stayed nice and crisp. I'm going to demonstrate while working on the main part over here. I am working the burnt umber very coarsely into the edges of our lantern like this, just to give a sense of aging. I'm going to apply it very heavily around the edges and especially up here on the decorative part. I'm using a very dry brush on this one. Actually, I need to just put a little bit of water in there to soften that up. Move on to the next section. You're going to get your hands stained, so working on it. And working it roughly. Put two. A little bit too much on there. Take that right off. Reapply. Make sure that the edges are a little bit darker than the rest of the fan. Move on. And once you got all 6 sides done, you can run it under a hairdryer, see what it looks like. A very important element when you're staining, make sure you're doing parts that might be exposed so you don't have any view. I'm going to do a little bit of the interior over here, not to the core, because I'm not sure how the reconstruction is going to be, but I want to make sure. You can see my hands are nice and stained up from the burnt umber, but it washes off. Everything washes off. This is not a stain, it's just an acrylic, so it comes off with water and soap. And I'll just stain this up a little bit so it has that more of an aged look to it. So I have my bit of water over here and bring out my burnt umber. We want to mix up a nice slurry. Don't want to overdo this. Just very, very carefully. Let's see how well that absorbs. Whoa! Whoa, whoa! A lot better than I thought it was ever going to absorb. Okay, this is definitely water absorbency here. We're just using the slurry and we're just going to put some of that on there. Surprise, surprise. I expected it to repel the water. Then we'd have to use a completely different technique. But it is absorbing beautifully. So we're going to stain up that tassel. A lot better than I thought it was going to be. Wow, okay. Turn it over, make sure that it's stained all the way. Okay, now with this going on, we are going to, ooh, that's too much. Too much, no problem. Just take that off. Okay, now I'm just going to strip that a little bit. Strip the water out of there. Okay, it is stained. Now we got all of that canary yellow out of there. The brilliance is gone. Let's put this under a hairdryer and see what it looks like. Just a quick comparison to show you the difference in aging from this brilliant yellow to the faded one. If you want to go darker than this, I wouldn't. I kind of like this. Looks like it's been aged by smoke and grease and everything else and who knows what and sunlight. So going from this modern day color to the aged one. Okay, now second part is we're going to start to age the base more. This part we're going to stain the last tassels and then add a second coat of burnt umber. Prop is now ready for its debut in the photo shoot. Looking good.